But that is the unfortunate piece. That like today, the people who should be teaching, they should be the most knowledgeable. They should have done things, been there. And वैसा बिल्कुल भी नहीं है, opposite हो रहा है.
Today's guest is one of the first key members of Facebook Messenger's first ever group. He's basically the reason why Facebook Messenger was built in the world. He was living in the States, then moved to London office of Facebook, and he was the key integral people at the London office as well. He was living his life. But he left his cushy job, all that money he was making while working at Facebook with the world's best leaders and the founders. Why did he do that? He came back to India because he realized that quality education in India is really bad. The situation right now is really bad when it comes to engineers especially. Now, what is he doing in this space? What are the problems with Indian education? How is he solving those problems? What is he doing for the next generation of entrepreneurs, leaders, and engineers in the country? Also, we've spoken about how he's helping these creators, these engineers, these people to become and find out billion-dollar ideas of tomorrow. He's basically making India ready for the next revolution so that we can lead in the world. So we've spoken about many things with the co-founder of Scalar Academy, Anshuman Singh, and also we spoke about how somebody can find billion-dollar ideas. And if you already have an idea, how can you do or tweak your business model in a way so that your customers become your lifelong fans? Keep watching this episode till the end because you're going to learn not only about what has happened in the past with the job culture, what is happening right now in the Indian education system, but also how and what are the opportunities present for you and me, every common person in the Metaverse and Web 3.0, so that you and me can also become multimillionaires of tomorrow. The first question I have is, मैंने भी सुना that you work a lot. You work till 4 a.m. in the morning as well, right? Okay. And a lot of people want to work till 4 a.m. in the morning. A lot of people feel that hustle culture, हमें भी hustle करना है, but they can't do it because they don't know how to get out of the bed and do it actually. I get very lazy, especially me and a lot of people I know in my audience as well. As a constant question, how to beat procrastination? So, how do you beat procrastination? 4 बजे तक सुबह काम कैसे करते हो? वापस फिर आके वापस काम कैसे start करते हो?
Actually, 2-3 parts में होता है. So one part is motivation. I'll maybe take an example and phrase that. And the second part is discipline.
Okay.
But like primarily it is motivation. Motivation, dreaming, hoping. There is an experiment which is called as the drowning rat experiment.
Okay.
तो उसको कुछ साइंटिस्ट ने किया था. उन्होंने क्या किया था कि it's a very cruel experiment, so I don't endorse it. But what they did was they एक बाल्टी पानी लिया, बहुत सारे चूहे लिए, उन्होंने एक एक करके चूहे उठा के बाल्टी में डालना स्टार्ट किया. एंड दे स्टार्टेड मेजरिंग कि कितना टाइम लगता है बिफोर दीज रैट्स गिव अप एंड दे ड्राउन. एवरेज केम टू अराउंड 15 मिनट्स.
ओके.
15 मिनट में ये सारे चूहे गिव अप मार देते थे और फिर डूब के मर जाते थे. तो देन दीज गाइज पिक्ड अप अनदर चूहा, पुट इट इन द बकेट. Just before it was 15 minutes, so at the 14-minute mark, उसको बाहर निकाल के एकदम ड्राई करके, they made it warm, they gave it very, very good food. Next day, after 24 hours, they put it in the bucket again. Guess how much time did it keep fighting before giving up? 60 hours.
60 hours. 14 minutes, 15 minutes to
60 hours. एंड द रीज़न वॉज कि वो चूहे को हमेशा लगता रहा कि अभी कोई आएगा मेरे को निकाल के ले जाएगा एंड मुझे फिर से अच्छा खाना मिलेगा. एंड दैट्स एक्चुअली ट्रू फॉर ऑल ऑफ अस इन लाइफ एज वेल, राइट? लाइक इफ़ यू बिलीव, इफ़ यू होप, इफ़ यू ड्रीम, तो आप ज़्यादा फाइट मारते हो लाइफ में. तो दैट इज़ द फर्स्ट थिंग. आई मीन आई डू बिकॉज देर इज़ अ एंड गोल दैट आई सी, एंड मेरे को लगता है यार कि फ़ाइट मार के वहाँ तक पहुँचना है. 2 घंटे और फाइट मार लेता हूँ, 3 घंटे और फाइट मार लेता हूँ, पहुँचेंगे. So that is the first part. First part is
motivation.
Motivation.
Like you have a hope, you have a big dream which you're working towards, because पहुंचूंगा मैं, वहीं तो पहुंच जाऊंगा, end goal है. And second part is discipline.
Second part is discipline. अब discipline में क्या होता है कि हम लोग आज की दुनिया में इतना सारा distraction है कि if I am today sitting to do something, I have Instagram to check, I have यूट्यूब टू चेक बिकॉज वहाँ पे कोई नया वीडियो आया है, देर इज़ लिंक्डइन टू चेक, मे बी समबडी इज सेंडिंग मी अ मैसेज, देर इज़ व्हाट्सएप टू चेक, मैसेंजर टू चेक. You're so connected that it is really really hard to focus. And कंप्यूटर साइंस में इनफैक्ट जो हमारे लैपटॉप्स होते हैं वहाँ पे एक टर्म होता है कॉन्टेक्स्ट स्विचिंग.
ओके.
कॉन्टेक्स्ट स्विचिंग इज़ कि जो आपका लैपटॉप है, जो प्रोसेसर है, वो एक टाइम पे एक काम कर सकता है. इफ़ इट इज़ अ 1 core CPU, इट कैन डू 1 work एट अ टाइम. तो जब भी आप उसको दूसरा काम करने को बोलते हो कि लेट्स से क्रोम ब्राउज़र भी चलाना है और साथ साइड बाई साइड एक वीडियो भी प्ले करना है, 2 different जॉब्स, तो उसको करना क्या पड़ता है कि एक काम रोक के जिस भी स्टेट में था उसको डंप करना पड़ता है और फिर दूसरा काम पिकअप करना पड़ता है. दिस प्रोसेस ऑफ डंपिंग and then picking up the new thing and reading all the context of the new thing takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And if a CPU is context switching multiple times, the computer or the laptop becomes really slow. हमारा दिमाग भी बिल्कुल वैसे ही चलता है. Yes. अगर आप चेंज करते रहोगे ना कि आपने ये काम स्टार्ट किया, चलो यार इंस्टाग्राम भी चेक कर लेते हैं, अभी चलो यूट्यूब भी चेक कर लेते हैं, उस 1 घंटे में मुझे 15 काम करने हैं, कुछ नहीं होगा.
मल्टीपल टैब्स ओपन कर दी, कुछ नहीं होगा,
कुछ नहीं होने वाला. तो एक जो बहुत सिंपल सा हैक है टू गेट स्टफ डन इज लाइक हैव डिसिप्लिन, क्रिएट दीज फोकस स्लॉट्स. इस टाइम पे मैं ये करूँगा. दिस इज नॉट टू से कि मैं कभी नेटफ्लिक्स नहीं देखूंगा, मैं यूट्यूब नहीं देखूंगा. दैट इज, आई डोंट बिलीव कि दैट एवर वर्क्स. You need to give yourself time as well, you need to give your family time as well, but make sure you have focus slots, not doing everything at the same time.
Yeah.
Everything at the same time करते हो तो आपका कंप्यूटर स्लो हो जाता है.
Yes, it makes so much sense. I have a similar thing, but I never thought of it as a motivation and discipline way. मैं इसको कभी मैं segregate करूँगा. But now you have given a terminology for this. I'm going to use it so many times because I'm stealing this from you. So this is what I believed. Okay, I used to say that every human being वो काम सिर्फ 2 ही रीज़न से करता है. या तो उसको डर लगता है कि कल मैं उठूँगा तो मेरे साथ सब खत्म हो जाएगा. That's why he wakes up, you know, he works really hard today to get the money, to get the security, to get the life which he believes in, right? और या तो उसको उम्मीद होती है कि आज से better tomorrow होगा. So it's either aspiration or fear. These are the 2 reasons. So that is why, so you need to associate your mind with any one of them in order to get up and work. That is first. And second, which I believe is the rule of one thing. is कि अगर तुम्हें consistent रहना है and you have to beat procrastination for a long period of time in your life, you need to follow rule of one thing in your life. So every morning you wake up, what is that one thing I want to accomplish? So you do that first. अगर वो हो जाए तो फिर तुम दूसरी चीज़ स्टार्ट करो, फिर तुम तीसरी चीज़ करो, फिर चौथी चीज़ करो. लेकिन पहला is first you achieve that first thing. नहीं तो people usually wake up with 20 things in their mind, they end up doing nothing.
Right.
Same thing, but you made it very clear, like a computer जैसे एक process होता है, एक system होता है. So इसको मैं कोई term दे दूंगा और मैं बोलूँगा बहुत अच्छा system मैंने सीखा. But now talking about the motivation part, right? You have a motivation, you have a dream. That is why you're working so hard. And that dream is closely related to the thing which we talked about in our conversation before the podcast started, that Indian colleges sucks. Like they're bad. Right now, the quality education in our country lacks. I mean, I'm not going to say that everything is bad, but
most colleges,
most of it sucks. Like it's bad in the, like, why do you feel there's a lack of quality education in our country?
बड़े सारे reasons and like there's so many reasons. Where do I start? So I'll maybe go point by point.
Okay.
First is the auditing framework or the regulatory structure. वो हमारी गवर्नमेंट का बड़ी धीरे धीरे चेंज होता है. NEP is a good step, but मतलब मैं थोड़ा सा अगर हिस्ट्री बताऊँ तो 1970s में इंडियन गवर्नमेंट ने बोला कि यार देखो आपको बीटेक या बीएससी करना है तो यू हैव टू बी फिजिकली प्रेजेंट, आपको एक लैब में जाके एक्सपेरिमेंट करना पड़ेगा, नहीं तो ऐसे कैसे साइंस आएगा आपको. लेकिन अब क्या है कि एज चेंज हो चुका है. एवरीथिंग इज मतलब इफ़ यू फॉर एग्जांपल अ कोडर, यू डोंट नीड टू बी इन अ लैब. योर कंप्यूटर इज योर लैब. In fact, even if you're a mechanical engineer, civil engineer, a lot of simulations happen online. You don't really need कि मैं बैठ के वो ईंटें लगा रहा हूँ और फिर मैं देख रहा हूँ कि बन रही है दीवार की नहीं बन रही है. It's not. It has changed. The mode of working has changed, but our regulatory framework hasn't changed. Okay. So hence, one is कि we are lagging behind there, but that is again like maybe a small reason. Okay. There are larger reasons. So the second thing is, unfortunately, our society doesn't believe in paying for education that much. तो होता क्या है कि हमारे टीचर्स जो है बड़े लो पेड होते हैं. लाइक टीचर्स इज द लोएस्ट पेड प्रोफेशन, वन ऑफ द लोएस्ट पेड प्रोफेशन. which is unfortunate because
they should be highest paid, right?
They should be the highest paid, exactly. Like हमारे जो if you look at the history of our culture, again, I probably shouldn't be talking about caste, but the people who would teach, people who were considered like sacred because they were very knowledgeable, they held the highest position in the society.
Yes.
But abhi wo teachers who are supposed to be imparting knowledge because they know the most, if you don't pay them well, then obviously they'll go and find other professions where they get paid enough. अभी होता क्या है कि most colleges, I'm not saying all colleges, and this is by the way a phenomenon I saw in my own city, Lucknow. There are a bunch of colleges there, वहाँ पे placement season होता है. Placement में कुछ companies आती हैं, hire करके ले जाती हैं. Colleges को दिखाना है कि हमारा almost 100% placement है. तो जो लोग नहीं place होते हैं, उनको professors बना देते हैं. अब अगर वो लोग पढ़ाएंगे आपको, तो भगवान जाने कैसे लोग पढ़ के कैसे निकलेंगे. But that is the unfortunate piece. That like today, the people who should be teaching, they should be the most knowledgeable. They should have done things, been there, and वैसा बिल्कुल भी नहीं है, opposite हो रहा है.
हाँ, people who don't have any other option, they end up becoming teachers instead of people who have been at the highest place, them becoming teachers.
That being said, I'm not saying that this is happening at all colleges. Most colleges. Some colleges, and like in general, एक जो pattern wise broken है, वो ये कि मेडिकल साइंस ने एक चीज़ अच्छी ये करी थी कि पीपल हु वुड टीच वर पीपल हु वर प्रैक्टिशनर्स. डॉक्टर्स होते हैं, हॉस्पिटल फॉर एग्जांपल मणिपाल हॉस्पिटल है, अब उसमें जो लोग डॉक्टर का काम कर रहे हैं, दे आर द वंस ऑल्सो टीचिंग. So I am up to date with what is happening in the outside world. Like today, if I have to go and talk about COVID vaccine and कैसे चलती है वो vaccine, I know because I am there dealing with 20 patients every day. Computer science and most engineering उल्टा है. एक प्रोफेसर्स का एक अलग प्रोफेशन बन गया है. They don't go and do job, they don't go and like write code. Probably पिछले 15 साल से नहीं लिखा है, लेकिन मैं पढ़ा रहा हूँ कंप्यूटर साइंस. तो थोड़ा स्ट्रक्चरली ब्रोकन है. I believe that there needs to be an element of practice to any profession.
Yes.
Otherwise आप practical examples ले नहीं पाते हो. You might be very knowledgeable, you might be very talented, but if there is an element of practice, it just makes you better at what you do. So that's the other piece that is broken. I think the fourth piece which is broken is that most colleges today, the biggest fear that they have is ki how do I make sure I'm following all regulations set by AICTE. Nobody is thinking about innovation. मैं curriculum में कैसे innovate कर दूँ? How do I make sure कि my students learn a lot? How do I get them to experiment, explore, figure out? सबको तो engineering में भर दिया जाता है. नहीं करनी यार मेरे को engineering, लेकिन करो. तो the habit of, I mean, if you look at the Stanfords and the MITs of the world, there is a lot of innovation going on in every single thing that they do.
Yes.
हमारे यहाँ अभी unfortunately in most colleges that culture hasn't
picked up yet.
Most probably because everybody is just ticking those check boxes कि मैंने regulations सारे follow किए कि नहीं किए. All of that combined, and there is one final piece which is what has happened in the industry right now, is कि the IT industry, which is right now the biggest industry, it became the biggest industry in the last 20 years or so. It exploded. 2001, 2002 में एकदम से explosion हुआ. हमारे पास engineers थे नहीं उतने. तो हुआ क्या कि फिर देन एकदम से पेरेंट्स को दिखने लगा, अरे इन्फोसिस में जॉब लग रही है, अरे टीसीएस में जॉब लग रही है, कितनी बढ़िया लाइफस्टाइल हो गई. Everybody wanted to become engineer. Everybody hence was opting for an engineering degree, but we did not have colleges. तो होता क्या, when there is a gap in supply and demand, then you try to sort of create the demand, and hence a lot of colleges crept up, जिनके पास basics भी ठीक नहीं थे. But because there was demand, they were still getting people enrolling. The entire duration of 2001 to 2020, there have been a lot of hubs of colleges all throughout India with very little substance in them. कुछ ही colleges हैं जो अच्छे हैं. Majority colleges हमारे बहुत बेकार हैं, and वो happened because of the supply-demand mismatch. But ये सारे combinations, there is no one reason, but all of it has come together to sort of.
No, it makes a lot of sense because there was a joke in my college, okay, and I'm from a BBA background, not not typically engineering background, right? So we used to have a joke that there was this one kid in our college. He's now like a very good entrepreneur, doing really good for himself. He used to come in the class and he used to say, यार अपने entrepreneurship teacher ने कितने startups बना के बेचे? How many times has he raised funds? How many times does he even go to bank? How many times does he validate ideas or he checks up on product market fit? Like, what is he doing in his life? So we used to ask. And उसने पूरी class को सिखा दिया. And everybody used to think, यार ये तो सही बोल रहा है. Then we started asking this question to everyone. The finance teachers, the finance questions. Marketing teachers, say marketing questions. And no teacher had a relevant experience. They all say we have 15 years of industry experience. In what? They don't talk about it. What do? They don't. So that's one of the broken things. And second, when you talked about innovations, right? We were just talking about like right from the scratch, every department of college is like 70s के ज़माने में चल रहा है. Even today at a college, I don't know about your college, but in my college we have to make a DD. Demand draft बना के fees भरनी पड़ती, right from the admissions. So वो admission में payment ही मैं UPI से नहीं कर सकता. I mean, forget about other innovations, right? And even before we go to college, we're talking about entrance exam. कि लोग 4 साल पहले कोटा भेज देते हैं कि तुम 9th 10th 11th 12th 4 साल पढ़ो किसी ऐसी एग्जाम के लिए जो एग्जाम तुम्हें बाद में कभी काम नहीं आने वाली. So I think the entire system is that way broken, right? What are your views on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've now been in my career for more than 10 years. I have not used a single concept of all of the slogging that I did for 2 years to prepare for JEE. तो broken तो बहुत ज़्यादा है. इनफैक्ट लाइक एक दूसरी तरीके से जो broken है ना वो हमें ट्रेन करता है टेस्ट क्रैक करने के लिए.
Okay.
ज़िंदगी में आप टेस्ट नहीं क्रैक करते हो. Actually, the real life is about like facing problems and figuring out solutions to those problems. But the entire test prep market, which is JEE हो गया या फिर वो NET होता है शायद medical में, that prepares us for यार topics कौन से important है मैं इसको जल्दी मगअप कर लेता हूँ. And I will get really good marks in the final exam, and hence I will get into an IIT or an AIMS, etc. And that's what my life goal is. That does not really prepare you for what is going to happen in the real world. The real world wants you to think. The real world wants you to experiment. The real world wants you to explore. The real world is just a collection of problem statements that you go and solve. Well, unfortunately, those years of your lives are wasted. Because you're preparing to get into, and this is very unique to India, by the way. India or China, those are the two countries which have this massive culture of test prep, and then finally, like 2-3 साल आप spend करते हो to prepare for a test so that you can go and do engineering.
Yeah.
All of your school education aside. I feel that's a big waste of talent. I hope it will get disrupted someday.
You guys are there on the right track, probably. But
hopefully.
So in real life, you need skills.
Right.
In real life, you need problem-solving skills. You need XYZ skills in order to make money or in order to work for the cause which you really care about, right?
Right.
How can an average person start learning skills? And once they learn skills, how do they get opportunities from them?
Yeah, actually, वो skills भी बड़ा misused term है. So,
okay.
I can talk about, for example, IT industry because I'm very close to that. In the IT industry, a lot of people, in fact, like if you look at most advertisement, people talk about learning tools. जैसे coding में, there are programming languages. So C++ or Java or Python, these are tools. Everybody is advertising, आ जाओ मैं तुम्हें C++ सिखा देता हूँ. Come here, I'll teach you Java, I'll teach you Python, etc., all of that. But the truth is, like if you look at a mechanic, for example, मैकेनिक के पास उसके डब्बे में एक स्क्रू ड्राइवर होगा, मे बी देयर इज अ टेस्टर ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी एट्सेट्रा, बट नो मैकेनिक सेज कि आई एम अ स्क्रू ड्राइवर मैकेनिक. बट इन IT, people say I am a Python developer, I am a Java developer. That is fundamentally broken. Again, the real world doesn't care about the tool that you use.
Yeah.
In the real world, in fact, like what happens in most product companies as well, the large brands that you see, is you get a problem statement, you figure out what is the right tool for the job, and you go and solve that job. What is important for skills is that you learn the art of learning.
Yeah.
One of the things that at least happened very early on in my life, which I'm very grateful for, is I got hooked into something called competitive programming which trained me to look at problem statements. I mean, competitive programming is you just get essentially a lot of various kind of problem statements, and you have to use coding to figure out solutions to those problem statements.
Okay.
Now, what language are you using, etc.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't not matter. It's inconsequential. But if you do that a lot of number of times, then at least behaviorally, you expect to encounter problem statements. You're not afraid of that, and then you go and figure out a solution. That is actually what, if you see most top companies in the ecosystem, that is what they value as well. Your problem-solving skills, your ability to learn new technologies, new tools as and when required. Because they're, at the end of the day, tools.
Yeah.
A mechanic will be given a fan to go and repair. He would never be told, here is a screwdriver, you are a screwdriver mechanic, now go and fix whatever you can with the screwdriver.
And it does make sense, because कोई भी जाके ये कोई problem नहीं बोलेगा कि ना ये screwdriver से कुछ कर दो. At the end of the day, you care about मेरी कार सही हो जानी चाहिए.
Correct.
Like,
correct.
You don't care कि कार कैसे सही हो रही है, कौन से screw से कर रहा है, कौन से नहीं कर रहा है, तो current डाल रहा है. You don't give a shit.
Correct.
And that should be promoted. That is not being promoted. People are promoting the other side of it, right?
Exactly. कि आ जाओ मैं तुम्हें screwdriver सिखा देता हूँ. So that's the thing, like which is.
And people are falling for it.
Yeah, people are falling for it. I mean, I can't take names, but I mean, look at most brands. If you go and look at their pages would talk about technology, big data, this, that, etc., etc. I'll teach you all of that.
4 big words which people don't know about, and we're like, okay, let's do this. But this is also because all of a sudden there's a boom in the demand of software developers, right? Software engineers.
Yeah.
Like everybody's talking about tech talent. In fact, I read some tweet. It's a massive, like a decacon, okay? And the founder of that company tweets that if you think you're considerably a good tech talent, come work for us. We'll pay you 20% more than what you're getting already. It's an offer for everyone. And read that tweet, I was shocked. Like, ये कैसी job hiring है? हर कोई welcome. अगर तुम्हें लगता है तुम अच्छे हो, तो 20% ज़्यादा ले लो, आ जाओ, join करो. So why do you feel all of a sudden there's such a huge demand for software engineering?
So it was expected, but it wasn't expected that it would happen so soon. Essentially, हो क्या रहा था कि there is a term called Industrial Revolution 5.0.
Yeah.
I think 4.0 or 5.0. I keep getting confused. But what was happening was that every single sector was identifying ki what are my redundant tasks or what are the things that I can automate which will make me much stronger. For example, the largest car company today is Tesla. Tesla is half car company and half tech company. Right?
More tech company than a car company.
Exactly right. So that is happening in every single sector. Like I was in London for a year. There I saw like 2 job functions automated within the span of a year. One was they have these tubes where there were these ticket counters where you go and buy tickets. In a matter of 3 months, I saw those ticket counters being replaced by vending machines. And the second was I had a friend who was working for this oil company, and his job was that he would, so there would be a feed of, or there was a video feed of oil pipelines. तो उसको pipeline review करना होता था. अगर कहीं leak दिख रहा है तो उसको flag करना होता है. देखो यहाँ leak है, because leaks are very expensive in their context. He told me कि यार मेरी team कुछ 50-60 लोगों की थी. They've now reduced that team to 3 people, because now there are systems that can do this monitoring and they can flag कि maybe यहाँ पे leak है, and then there's this human who goes and verify कि भाई leak है कि नहीं है. ये हर जगह हो रहा है और धीरे धीरे हो रहा था. What happened post COVID is कि the speed of this happening got really accelerated because every single sector, every single industry started to realize that there is no other option than to go digital.
Yeah.
Right, like all, for example, entire e-commerce, everything shifted to online order करो. या फिर you have to go to school. School का education भी आप जाके school में नहीं कर सकते हो. Now you have to study online, right? Even in our case, like the higher education as well has to happen online. So everybody was forced to go digital, to think about like
digital ways to interact, to engage, to build products on.
So because that happened, now suddenly everybody needs software engineer. Every single industry needs software engineers. Now there are industries that are building a software engineering lab because they want to accelerate this process. And the effects of this you'll see for the next 5 to 10 years. And hence there is suddenly this spike in demand for software engineers, which you'll see even increase a lot more going forward.
Will it increase, or do you think because everybody's focusing on software developers or har koi software engineers hi bana raha hai, so it'll go down because there'll be excess supply?
So it is, to be honest, like not about the supply of people who can call themselves software engineers.
Okay.
It is typically the supply of quality software engineers. The kind of software engineers which I told you, right? Like I can give you a problem statement in the real world, you can go and solve it. Because that's the core of what is happening in Industrial Revolution 5.0. I will not tell you that ये Java use करके please ये कर दो. But rather, here is a problem statement, ये मुझे automate करना है, बताओ कैसे करना है. हो ये रहा है कि if every single job function, it is, I mean, a lot of people come and tell me कि यार ये सब तो बहुत बेकार हो रहा है, jobs चली जाएंगी, the unemployment increase हो जाएगा, सब automate हो जाएगा. अरे नहीं, it is the nature of job function that is changing. वो oil pipeline के case में भी, while the number of people went from 60 to 3 of people who are monitoring this, it created a lot of other jobs which were software engineering in nature. Okay, now somebody had to go build these systems to monitor the pipelines. Somebody had to keep improving that. And it was not one person, but a team of software engineers.
Yeah.
So the nature of jobs is changing. And वो अभी flux में है. It will keep changing for the next 10 years or so. Now, then it's a question of how quickly are we producing very quality software engineers. We're not producing enough. Hence, the 20% blank hike. Or, I mean, there are companies giving you free Dubai trips, BMW bikes, and
laptops, iPads, everything.
Everything.
Come join. This is what you're going to get. Everything you're going to get. But let's say somebody who's listening to this podcast and believes in that he has now acquired certain skills, and he's not like a Python developer or something, but he's a developer. Or he's somebody in some different field.
Right.
Who feels like, I'm a hustler, I can get things done. I'm a good guy. How does that person who has skilled himself enough or herself enough, how can they find opportunities in today's world?
Actually,
what's the best way to do it?
So if you are skilled, then opportunities is, to be honest, the easier part. I know that I'm sitting at a very privileged position saying that the opportunities is the easier part, but I'll tell you like why I say it's the easier part. There are a lot of platforms that now enable companies and people to get connected with each other. For example, in the field of tech hiring, there is Naukri, there is InstaHire, there is Top Hire, a bunch of these kind of platforms where AngelList, you go and you can connect with companies. Most probably, like if you apply to maybe 5-10 companies, you'll get 1 or 2 responses.
Yep.
And you don't really want that every single company responds. Even if you get to interview at 1 or 2 places, you can crack that. That's awesome. The second thing is the fact that you're really, really good at software. It's a superpower in today's world.
Yep, it is.
You can actually go and build things on your own if you wanted to. That is, I mean, if you look at a trend today, most CEOs of the top tech companies, actually top companies, most top, highest valued companies.
Now it's no more tech. It's all top companies.
All top companies. They are people with technical background in the past. Very recently, the CEO of Twitter, he was the CTO of Twitter before.
Yeah.
He was the chief technology officer of Twitter before. So the other thing that it enables you to do is कि आपको company start करनी है, आप company start कर लो. You figure out a problem around you, things that you see are broken, you try to fix it with tech. So there are enough jobs. Jobs are exploding. There are a bunch of platforms that help you connect with jobs. And more than anything else, like if you are one of those who dream and who can create, you can go and create.
Yeah. So quickly, like a quick question is, apart from being a software developer, apart from being a tech talent, what do you feel are the top 3 skills which are really in demand or which will keep going up in demand? Because like when you're in college, right, you're fresh.
Right.
You're like that clay who can be molded in anything which you want, and you can learn any goddamn skill which you want to learn, right? So what are the top 3 skills which somebody should learn so that they can safeguard in the future and they can have this ability to solve problems?
Right. I'm a little biased here. I mean, so I would say that, look, I mean, coding is necessary for everybody, like at least some.
What if people like us have no background of coding, have no future?
No, I mean, so there are certain skills which are always going to be evergreen. For example, marketing, brand building, those are going to be basic needs for any company.
Yeah.
the more companies start, the more that needs, there is more noise, and then there is more the need to stand out, and hence that is an evergreen skill. So marketing, if you're good at that, if you're very creative, you have a very safe future
Chalo,
ahead.
बचा लिया आपने को.
I believe like marketing, the other thing that has been actually talked about and now is picking up a little bit of pace is I think just at the core being able to run or like know the art of running a business. Now that is a very, very broad term, but the art of running a business is at the end of the day like being able to take decisions which are right most of the time. And then it is also slowly evolving into a science.
Yeah. Strategic decision making.
Yeah. So some of it is domain relevance, and then some of it is can be driven by data, and then like that is where things like data science come into the picture. So analytics and data science, they're also going to stay evergreen.
So first is brand marketing, second is analytics and data, and third
is, and this is also very cliche, very, very old profession, but I again believe that is always going to live is sales.
Sales. Okay. Hardcore sales.
Hardcore sales, yeah. I mean, typically most important skill for a company is, now that you've created value, you've built something that has value, being able to sell that to people. Now, you could be selling to people, you could be selling to enterprises, to companies, but eventually you have to go and sell it.
Yeah.
Because that is what is going to generate revenue at the end of the day. Every company that you see in our ecosystem today has a large marketing function, has a large sales function, and has a large tech function.
Yeah.
So hence I say like
you need
marketing.
to get really good at either marketing, sales, or big data, because this is what is future is led by. After coding.
Yeah, after
coding. So this was my backup option was, right? Like I keep talking to my dad, and my dad says that kal agar TikTok जैसे Instagram ban हो गया. yeah, if YouTube gets banned, like what are you going to do? What's your backup option? And I say, I already running like couple of businesses, that's my backup option. My dad said, everything gets shot. What's your backup option? I'm like, I'm going to find out some startup and tell them I'm going to do marketing and branding for you. That is the last option I have. So I get like a good sense of security right now. People are like validating my idea right now. We're talking about jobs, talking about opportunities. You have worked with the OG, right? Like you have worked the dream entrepreneur, which everybody takes examples of. Like you have worked with Zuck. What was your biggest learning while you were at Facebook? While you were building at Facebook and working with the team of Mark Zuckerberg or himself?
Two learnings primarily. One, it does not matter how hard you work, what you get, how much lines of code you write, how many meetings you do. At the end of the day, all that matters is what impact you made. Eventually, what you get paid is a function of the amount of wealth you generate. The wealth you generate is a function of the impact you create. So that was the first realization, because when I joined Facebook, I was just a graduate out of college. And at that point, like, it was a lot about, hey, here is a very cool problem statement that I'm solving. Here's a very cool tech. Let me go and try that. In just 6 to 9 months, I realized like coolness is less important. What is important is what I'm doing, what I'm building. What is that doing to the end audience? What kind of impact it is creating to the end users? If the impact is high, eventually you'll become big
asset.
Big asset for anybody, right? So the art of creating impact, the art of actually identifying where can I create impact and continuously doing that, that's one very, very important skill. The second thing that I realized was, and this is a sort of a management principle at Facebook as well, is that people do their best when you are able to clearly identify what they're passionate about, and you're able to give them to do something that they're really, really passionate about. So one of the things that, for example, Facebook had was that when you join Facebook, you're not allocated to a team. There is a 6-week boot camp where you work with every single team in Facebook. You go do something very small with, let's say, Photos team. You go do something very small with Messages team. You go do something very small with Pages team. You go explore and figure out what you're really, really interested in. You go come and tell us like what you're really passionate about. What do you like to do in the next 6 months, 1 year? Because when you give people that independence, then people run, they sprint, because then they want to actually, I told you about the motivation part, right?
Yeah.
This is cracking the motivation.
This is like the classic management trainee kind of position for 6 weeks. They're just accelerating the thing, right? Like how big MNCs have 2 years of MT program, 1 year of management trainee program. They make you work at different
But this is happening in tech at Facebook. So every single software engineer gets to do that like for 6 weeks. And then you choose. So that became clear to us as well. Like even when we are hiring, it is important to understand what drives a person. If you're able to, I mean, skill
Identify
alone is
that.
not, yeah, if you're able to identify that here is a person who's really interested in, let's say, solving this kind of a problem, and you're able to put them to solve that problem, they'll do a massively good job at it.
So for 6 weeks, you leave them with multiple people, and then whoever's spending most of the time at some place, you automatically kind of know what he's doing and then what kind of impact is he making there. I think what stood out for me in this answer was that you said at the end of the day, it's not about how hard you work. It's about how much impact you're making or how much wealth you're creating for the organization or for yourself. Because that's going to define how well you're going to do or how big of an asset you become.
Right.
It's so true. Most of the times we always hear work hard, work harder, keep doing this. And work harder means like run for 20 hours a day. I mean, that's typically not with example, but that's typically at it. Like if you're a coder, write hundreds of code lines every goddamn minute. Then if you're a content creator, create like thousands of videos every day. Like working hard is that. But working hard doesn't mean that at all.
Right. I mean, working hard alone is not enough. You have to make sure that you're working hard with an objective in mind, that this is what I want to achieve, and here is the best place where I can put all of my efforts.
That's an interesting framework. I think this is going to stand out for me from this podcast. Okay, so what then you felt like you were learning in Facebook. Facebook is a dream company. Why did you move to India then? Like, why did you come back here? You were in States, right?
Yeah, I was in States for 3 years. I was 1 year in London, setting up the Facebook London office. I mean, life was good. Life was very comfortable.
Because I'm sure there were many perks.
Yeah,
You're a tech talent, one of the 4 people who got hired from India. So having fun.
Yeah, I mean, so
life.
companies like Facebook, Google, they take really, really good care of you. For example, even your laundry, you don't have to do.
Oh.
They do your laundry. They pay for your food. They have like really good food in the office. In fact, Google has this policy that no employee should have to walk more than 100 meters or 10 meters to get food. So you have a mini cafeteria just like 10, 20 meters away from you, from every desk.
Wow. Wow.
And it's stocked with chocolates and cashew nuts and a bunch of other things, right? So tech companies are really good at spoiling you. So,
hence the demand. That's why nobody wants you. Once it's so hard to get you that they don't want you to leave.
Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't be saying this, but like most of those companies are black holes. People go, but they never leave.
Then how did you leave? Like, why did you leave? Why did you come back to India?
Yeah, actually, so a few things, right? One is both me and Abhimanyu is my co-founder. We were like creators at heart. We would be, even when we were in college, we created a couple of things. One was this, we created this product called Daksh, which was a product where you could control your electrical appliances from your laptop. And it would detect anomalies in patterns. For example, if your AC is still running in the afternoon, but it's usually not running in the afternoon, it would just flag that maybe you did not intend to leave it open. So we did that. We also built an anonymous chatting forum, which we realized was a bad decision.
You had your own mini version of Yahoo Messenger or...
Yeah, it was less Yahoo Messenger. Think of it more like Gossip Girl as a product, which we figured out like was a lot of scandals, and hence we shut it down.
Okay.
But I mean, because we always wanted to create something that was something we wanted to do anyhow. And the second thing is like based on the personal experiences as well, I felt that, I mean, we are a family of engineers. My younger brothers, they're also engineers.
Okay.
So I felt like that's something that majority of India is doing, and if it is broken to the extent that we just described, I did not even have a solution in mind. We just figured let's go and fix it. That's one problem statement to pick. Let's solve for the solution. And we felt that we had made enough money by then to be able to sustain ourselves.
For 2 years, I was like.
Actually, 5-6 years, because you don't want to take decisions for the companies which are good for the short run. You want to take decisions which are good for the long run. If you're creating a company that would outlast you, so and we felt like if we are at this problem statement for long enough without giving up, we'll eventually figure out a solution. We are still figuring out a solution, but but I mean. So hence, both me and Abhimanyu, we moved back to India. We initially started with the thesis that maybe free content is the way to solve it. We were big fans of Duolingo, so we tried almost creating like a Duolingo for programming. It was called InterviewBit. What we realized over a period of time is, there's so much more to education. Content is exactly like books.
Yeah.
So you can create really awesome books. But just because you have books lying around does not mean that I'll become knowledgeable. Just because I have books on surgeries at my home, I don't become a surgeon.
Yeah.
Or at least I hope I don't become a surgeon. So books are one part of the puzzle, but content does not define education. Content is hygiene. Education is, we realized, and this was a learning over the last 6 years or so, content is a lot more about motivation, engagement, and addiction.
Motivation, engagement, and addiction.
Yeah, if you can get somebody addicted, like just for example, if you look at kids, they're addicted to playing video games. You don't have to tell them that you go play video game for 2 hours now. If you leave them alone, they'll probably play video games for like 6 hours straight, 7 hours straight, right? And if you can get people to spend that amount of time on education, the learning automatically happens. You'll falter, but you'll eventually figure it out. So hence, education is a lot more about how do I evoke that interest in you, and how do I make it super interesting. If you look at most TV shows that are most popular today, they're all lessons in history.
Yeah.
Rome is about Roman culture. Game of Thrones is mythological, but again, like
kind of built out of culture of history.
Yeah. That people binge watch, but nobody wants to study that history book. This just it's a game of addiction, engagement.
Makes sense. This is so good. I think this is going to be like a guiding principle for me to create content from here on. Because it does make sense. If you are able to make somebody addict to your content and make them sit there for like 5 hours without you asking them constantly to sit there.
Right.
I think you have done the job. Then whatever you're talking, whatever teaching, you have the power to shape that person's mind in a way, maybe for good or bad, like it's on you. And that's a very good thing to do.
Right.
It's crazy how you think about that particular, I'm just trying to think of like other examples of how we can make this possible, how we can make this big and make it possible at a scale where everybody and every startup is doing this, so that we change like the system and the narrative in the country, right?
Right. No, actually, there's a framework around this. So there is a book called Hooked by Nirayal.
Yeah.
It talks about how do you create these engagement loops,
Okay.
which gets people hooked. For example, if you see Facebook as a website or Instagram as a website, it's a website that hooks you. You get addicted to it, right? Like it almost becomes involuntarily, it becomes a pattern in your behavior. You have to click on that app. You have to scroll.
Yeah.
You have to look at stories. They've cracked the game of engagement. They've cracked the game of keeping you hooked. And it's a science. There is an activation point, which is a notification coming to you saying that this person has sent you a message, or this person has liked your image. That's the activation point. And then there is the law of it says unexpected returns or something. I mean, basically you do something and you don't know how much return are you going to get. For example, you create a video. You don't know how many views are you going to get.
Yeah.
The more number of views you get, that creates a dopamine effect. Very similarly, I create a post. How many likes I'm going to get? I don't know. How many comments I'm going to get? I don't know. But that creates that dopamine effect. I slowly start to crack it. And all of that creates this hook, this cycle. Education as well, like, it's a very similar science. We feel good about doing that. So we've been on this path like for the last 6 years, trying to crack this loop. What creates this loop of people coming back? Some of it is human element, some of it is product element, some of it is content element.
So talking about science and building something worth engaging, right? You used the word which said you, at the end of the day, the goal is to build a company which can outlast you.
Yeah.
Right. What do you think are the 3 pillars to build something which can outlast? Like what are the 3 guiding principles in a company which is getting built to outlast founders or outlast the initial set of team?
Right. I think first is just the framework that whenever you take decisions of a company, if you're building a company that you're building for the short run and you want an exit, you want to sell it, you want to make quick buck, then all of the decisions you take are good for the short term. Right? I might push somebody to just buy my product.
Yeah.
I might blackmail somebody into buying my product because it's giving me revenue right now. Right.
The growth figures right now.
Yeah, but if you want to build a company for the long run, it is okay to take decisions that are probably bad for the short run. They make your revenue dip. They're bad for the short term, but they're good for the long term because you're building things that will actually give you returns in the longer run. For example, a lot of education companies, if you look at, they have very, very high gross margin. Okay. What is the meaning of gross margin? Essentially, let's say if you pay me X amount for buying the product, how much money am I spending in delivering the product to you? Essentially, what kind of features and et cetera, right? So most people don't spend a lot of money here. They spend most of their money in sales and marketing.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you're building a company for the longer run, then you spend most of your money here.
Not on sales and marketing.
You still spend some money on sales and marketing.
Not as much as you do.
Not as much, right? Because you know that if people are really happy with this part, if you're creating a lot of promoters in this part, this will help you in the next 10 years. Might not help you in the immediate profits / revenue, etc. Right? So all of your decision framework then becomes what is good for me 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
Not what is good for me in the next month or next 2 months. So that's principle number 1. Principle number 2 is if you're building a company that you're going to be at it for like next 10 years, 20 years, it should be something that makes you happy.
Okay.
The motivation part, right? I feel very passionately about the problem statement, and I feel I internally feel that I'm doing good for the world. I'm adding something to the ecosystem or whatever makes you happy, right? Like it just makes you happy.
Yeah.
Be it whatever drives you. But like if you're going to do something for the next 10 years, 20 years, it should make you really happy that you're doing it.
Because like you can't be sad for like 20 years, right?
That's what you're going to be spending most of your life on.
Yeah. And the third part.
So that's the important bit. And the third part is, typically very, very long-lasting companies usually are driven by missions. Because it is not you alone who's going to be solving that problem. There will be people joining you on that journey. And hence storytelling and being mission-driven actually motivates other people to come and join you. Because then people don't join you because you're the highest payer in the market.
Yeah.
They join you because they also believe in what you believe. So if you're a mission-driven company, if you've done a good job at storytelling of why you're doing what you're doing, then you'll find a lot of people come along in the journey to help you build what you're trying to build. And that is very important. I mean, the term company means a collection of people. It does not say founder.
Yeah.
It's a company. So the people around this company, they matter a lot. So those are the 3 things I believe. I mean, obviously, like, it's my personal opinion.
Now I have a question on this, okay? Why are you doing what you're doing at Scalo? Like, what's your why? What's your mission?
Right, I mean, so it started with the fact that tech education is broken. Over a period of time, we've realized that education, at least in the higher education segment, is the most productive years of an individual.
Okay.
Right, like you're spending your year, I mean, you're probably 16 or 17 when you start your college education, and then like you do it till you're 21, 22. This is when you have the highest amount of energy. And unfortunately, right now, we're wasting that capital. If you multiply the number of people by those number of years, you're wasting an immense amount of energy and capital in the world.
Yeah.
What drives us is that if we are able to do even a 10%, 20% job of fixing it, cumulatively, that's a heavy, heavy amount of impact. And there is a study by Stanford that actually talks about how education is directly correlated to GDP of a nation.
Okay.
The more talented individuals you're able to produce, the more skilled individuals you're able to produce, they get together to build things. There's a term called zero sum.
Okay. Yeah.
What is zero sum is that, for example, let's say if I'm playing a football match, if my team wins, then your team has to lose. Hence, it's a zero sum.
Yeah.
If one person wins, the other person has to lose. For example, test prep, if JE, for example, is also zero sum.
Zero sum.
There are only
Few
these
will
many
get
number
selected,
of seats.
few.
Others have to get rejected, right? So if here are 5,000 people who are getting selected, that means others have to get rejected. Our GDP and our ecosystem is not zero sum. Because, apart from the existing jobs that are out there, you can create new jobs. You can create new companies. Because there are always going to be inconveniences or problem statements to solve.
Yeah.
Everybody is cribbing about how our government is bad, this is bad, that is bad. Take that problem statement, solve it, you'll create a good company for yourself. So there's always going to be that. And hence, like, if you have people in the ecosystem that are capable of picking a problem statement and solving it, they'll keep adding to that more and more. It's not zero sum. Hence, the more those kind of people you have, the better the GDP. Yeah. Look at Silicon Valley. Like, Silicon Valley is just one small state in the entire world, has probably the highest GDP in the world. Higher GDP than India.
The one state. Wow. But people, because since the beginning we have been playing zero-sum game, we have been brought up in that environment that we still play zero-sum game even after when we leave education. Yeah. Like, school is a zero-sum game. Like, some people have to become first. वो top 10 उन्हीं की value होगी, बाकी किसी की value नहीं होती, right? Then there's test prep, which you're talking about. So most of the games which we have been playing, races, football games, all of that, most of the things which give us the initial set of appreciation or sense of belongingness or sense of happiness are related to zero-sum game.
Yeah, actually, I'm sorry, like मैं cut कर रहा हूँ, but there is this very interesting incident that happened. I was talking to this one gentleman. He's 38 years old. He is now a manager in a big IT service company. And he was telling me कि यार मैं जब किसी को बुलाता हूँ ना, तो मैं पहले उनको 5 मिनट वेट कराता हूँ, फिर मैं बात करता हूँ.
क्यों?
मैं बोला क्यों? कहता उसको मालूम तो पड़े कि अब मैं मैनेजर हूँ. इतनी मेहनत करके मैं मैनेजर बना, अब उसको मालूम पड़ना चाहिए कि मैं मैनेजर हूँ. He is reporting to me. This is because we are conditioned to think of zero-sum game. लेकिन मैं मैनेजर बनाऊँ, तुम नहीं बन सकते. या फिर वो तुम आगे बढ़ जाओगे तो फिर मेरा नुकसान हो जाएगा.
Yeah. And that is the problem. That is why हर कोई एक दूसरे की बस ये examples, I'm sure ऐसे बहुत होंगे और जो बहुत करेंगे कि मेरी वैल्यू किसी ना किसी तरह उनको ये दिखाना है मैं तुमसे superior हूँ, मैं तुमसे superior हूँ, मेरा like I am ahead of you in this game.
Right.
I'm bigger than you, I'm better than you, and that's a constant need. And if we take this out, lot of good can be done.
Yeah.
So we talked about things like what is broken. We talked about what's your why. We talked about how the future is going to look like. If we take out all of this, obviously the GDP is going to go up, impact is going to be higher, people are going to be much more fulfilled and happier. Okay. And this is a question I ask everyone, but since I know you're like hardcore tech guy, before I ask the last question, I will have the second last question. What are your views on Metaverse or Web 3.0 or where the world is going ahead now?
So,
because you're producing the talent like with your startup,
right?
Which technically like half of them are going to work into something like this and build a bigger future as well.
Sure. No, I mean, हर किसी के पीछे सबसे पहले आंसर करने की जरूरत, मतलब जो सबसे पहला आंसर होता है वो होता है why, चाहिए भी क्यों. You answer the why, you answer the necessity, and then you answer कि okay ठीक है, this is what can achieve it. So one of the things, for example, जो COVID के time पे हुआ, everybody was at their home, everybody is interacting on Zoom or some kind of video app. That experience is still not at par with, let's say, meeting physically. The kind of bond we would develop because we've met physically is very different from the kind of bond we would develop if we were on a Zoom.
Yeah.
Zoom, right? And बहुत सारी जो passive communications होते हैं या फिर मतलब ऐसे चलते फिरते मिल गए, कुछ ऐसे ही बैठे डिस्कस कर लिया, वो सब नहीं हो पाता है. In fact, like even there is a tweet by Kunal Shah where he says that one of the biggest thing that most youngsters are losing out in this kind of an environment is कि if I'm sitting in an office and there are two seniors discussing a strategy, I can listen on to what they're discussing. Even though I'm not sort of part of that conversation. But just by listening to that, I can imbibe a lot of learning. वो सब real world में खत्म हो जाता है because I mean in the virtual world you're just very focused conversations हो रहे हैं. वो भी not very human. We're not used to that kind of conversations. So hence the problem is कि वो सब तो ठीक है. अब world पूरा flat हो रहा है. I mean, people in the US are talking to people in India very, very often. I am talking to a bunch of people in Europe, etc., etc. So how do we solve this problem? Ki I can actually sit and observe. I feel a more stronger bond when I talk to you. That's the why. And usko solve करने के लिए everybody is trying to do different things. One of the solution is Metaverse.
Okay.
Ki what if I have put on this headset and this headset controls most of my senses. Essentially, what I perceive is a combination of 5 senses that I have.
Yeah.
If it can control most of my senses, then it's as if I've been transported into a new world. In fact, there's a very good movie, Ready Player One. You should probably watch it. I've been transported into this world where I feel as if I'm sitting here. And I can look around and I can see people around me. I can tap on somebody's shoulder and I can have a conversation with them. I can shake hands with them. I can do everything that I can do in a physical world. Yeah. If I can replicate that, there's a big if. If I can replicate that, then it solves for a very, very important problem that now I can mingle with people no matter where they are. I can be attending a concert.
Yeah.
Arijit Singh concert with like people from everywhere in India, just like who have put on their headset and they're listening to the concert. I'm sitting beside somebody, I'm just getting to know them. All of that happening organically. This is just solving for human connections. So that's the why. Now, how close do we get to that solution? Is that solution going to be as good as almost a physical setup? We don't know, but we are headed there. I mean, especially Oculus, etc., the Quest 2, I was very recently playing around with it. It has made significant amount of progress in that direction. Again, whether we'll be able to solve it, not solve it, we don't know. But this is a big, major leap in the human connection setup.
It feels good. It feels good to play when you're having the headset, but it feels very annoying to wear it for more than 30 minutes.
Yeah, so there's still a lot to be done there. But that's the problem statement that they're trying to solve.
Yeah.
How do we get people from all around the world to feel more connected to each other? Because it's as if I'm sitting beside you and having this conversation. I know you more intimately.
Yes.
That's Metaverse. Web 3.0, I'll tell you where it started from, the why where it started from. And to be honest, like I don't know how much it's going to grow, but because there are a few personal opinions that I have there. But like where it started from was that currencies like, let's say INR or US dollars, etc. Imagine today you generate some amount of wealth. Let's say you have $1 million with you. What you would typically want is that today with this $1 million, I can go and buy some XYZ amount of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is called the purchasing power of this capital. I would want to make sure that 10 years down the line, this whatever money I have has the same purchasing power.
Yep.
But it doesn't happen so because there is inflation. The value of this capital that reduces with time.
Yeah.
And currencies fluctuate. If you're, for example, there have been countries that have had massive inflation.
Hyperinflation, yeah.
Zimbabwe, Venezuela, where all of the money that I had would probably have zero value in 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Right? So there is, I mean, for people who have wealth, one big problem statement is how do I make sure that this asset that I own is safe?
Okay.
And today it is not safe because it is regulated by governments and hence is very, very dependent on that government's economy.
How that government performs and their economy performs.
Correct. So hence there was, hence Bitcoin was born, which is how do we make a currency which is not tied to a government's performance, but rather it is decentralized in nature. No government controls it. It's controlled by the people and it is in certain sense protected from inflation to a certain extent. The purchasing power remains the same.
Yeah.
That was the problem statement with which it started. Now, there are merits to having currency not regulated. There are merits to having currency which is decentralized, and hence it has been adopted by various people. It is still possible that cryptocurrency, etc., can become huge because if you look at wealth is controlled by very few people.
Yeah.
As long as you have buy-in from them, you have almost bought into a new form or new paradigm of currency. On the other hand, Web 3.0 or blockchain is this another technology where we say that, look, even technologies should be decentralized. For example, Facebook should be decentralized, which is there is no Facebook authority controlling Facebook. It is people to people.
Yeah.
I mean, I am having chat with you, nobody needs to know. Even Facebook does not need to know. I am searching for something on web, Google does not need to know. It should be decentralized between people. While that is a great concept, makes a lot of sense. But in my opinion, most products are driven by distribution. There has to be somebody making sure a lot of people are using Facebook.
Yeah.
There should be somebody making sure a lot of people are using Google. I'm still not clear on how blockchain will solve or cross that barrier for non-financial transactions. With finance, there seems to be a very, very direct fit. Again, my personal opinion, I'll get a lot of flack for this because there are so many blockchain fanboys who will probably come and start shouting at me. But I mean, that's on first principles, that's where I see the gap.
Yeah.
Both very exciting technologies, but I mean, I don't know how they'll evolve.
Right now, you're still not very bullish on any of them. You're waiting, like you're taking a third seat and observing what's going to happen, how it's going to get evolved.
Yeah, I mean, Metaverse to some extent, cryptocurrency to a large extent, Web 3.0, blockchain in other aspects of the products, still very skeptical.
But I also feel most of the times what's going to happen is, like when you have a decentralized finance, right? Let's say you send money to some, like a wrong address, right? Now today, like you can call up HDFC and be like, hey, what, this is what I did. Can you block my transaction right now? Can you do this and that? There, you can't do that. So that's also going to be like an essential problem because here you know there's somebody that's responsible who can at least help me out to do something or maybe reverse my credit transactions, do something about it.
Right.
There's nothing going to be there. So I think that's going to be the big problem when it comes to trust and when it becomes mainstream. But obviously every technology has its own problems to solve and they get solved over the time. Yeah. The last question is, I ask this to everyone, is if you were not working at Scalar, okay, what do you think is the next big opportunity in our country and where would you be working?
That's a very deep question.
Because if I ask people where would you be working, they say, oh, in EdTech only. Like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
If you were not working in EdTech, where do you think is the next $1 billion opportunity?
I mean, so I'm a person who's driven a lot by first principles. On first principles, where you see problem around yourself. And typically, like if you're in a country like India, you see problems almost everywhere. Like there is an opportunity everywhere. For example, I mean, and one good litmus test of where big opportunities are, you just look at open up the news channel and you see like what are people most cribbing about. If it is the farm bills that people are most cribbing about, maybe there's an opportunity there. Like agri-tech is a large opportunity to go and capture. If education is what most people are cribbing about, then education is where you have the next opportunity. Solution, I don't know. And I believe, again, the same framework, that if you're at a problem statement for long enough, if you give it your all, you'll eventually figure out a solution. So in my framework, maybe just look at wherever the most amount of noise is, what people are cribbing the most about. And
so if this goes down, like let's say if you want to shut it down, you want to get it out, and then that day you will open your news channel for 5 days straight and be like, okay, 5 दिन तक ज़्यादा किसने time मेरा खाया?
और फिर उसके ऊपर you go try
start
to figure out.
Talking about that. That's a good framework. That's a good way to look at opportunities, and that's a good way to actually identify. Thanks a lot for doing this. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did.
I did.
And I loved a couple of things like that stood out for me. I think it's not only for the audience, but there are a few things which I'm going to take home and work on myself, because I think you have few philosophies or principles which you follow, which can help every content creator, every entrepreneur. I mean, regardless of whether they're a coder or they're trying to build something in EdTech, it's going to help like a lot of people because it makes sense. It's no rocket science. I don't know why we never thought about it, but it's so good. Thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for
Thank you for hosting me. Thank you for hosting me. Thank you so much.